Who's Y2Y? Never heard of them. Y2Y is an environmentalist group. Wrong. Y2Y is a group that's interested in protecting species from Yellowstone all the way to the Yukon. Wrong. Y2Y is a special interest group. Ding, 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 ding. Y2Y has been attacking Alberta and BC for a long time now. So what exactly is it? Well, it's Yellowstone to Yukon. It's basically wanting to create a park system and kick everyone out of the backcountry. Anybody who has a motor anyway, and anything on wheels, let's say. Anything on wheels that has a motor. And even mountain bikers, they're wanting them out of there. It's kicking everyone out of the backcountry all the way up from the Yukon all the way down to Yellowstone Park. Where do they get their money from? Well, most of the money on the Canada side of Y2Y does not come from Canada. Most of it comes from America. Y2Y is a very well-funded initiative. They've got tons of money behind them, and they're interested in kicking you and me out of the backcountry entirely. Y2Y is mostly full of people that have never been in the backcountry. They've never seen a grizzly bear. They don't understand what it's exactly like out there, but that doesn't matter because they want people like you and me out. They have this way of hiding their real agenda, which is shutting down oil and gas, because if you look at a lot of those areas that they're proposing to shut down, which is the whole thing really, but a lot of areas they're really focusing on are areas where there is lots of oil and gas activity. There's pipelines. They're basically looking to kick out anybody who works in oil and gas, anybody who likes to go outdoors and enjoy the mountains, and a bunch of forestry, that too. The majority of Y2Y's funding here on the Alberta side actually comes from the US. They are very well funded, and most of that money that is telling you and me what we can and can't do, most of the people telling you and me what we can and can't do are not Albertans. They're not Canadians either. For the most part, they're Americans meddling in what they think you and me should be doing. Who else funds Y2Y? No other than the wonderful NDP. So in turn, you and me fund Y2Y. NDP does not want development of oil and gas. It's a really interesting way for NDP to keep their hands clean because they don't want oil and gas development in Alberta. So all they have to do is support Y2Y, and Y2Y in turn will turn it into environmental and wildlife thing, and it'll move toward their secondary agenda, which is kicking oil and gas out of the backcountry. I'm all for conservation, and I always say that. I just don't think that it needs to be at such a level where you're kicking people out of the backcountry altogether. I've never said I'm not against conservation, because I totally am. It's the way that conservation is handled is absolutely terrible to me. And it's terrible to a lot of people. If you look at their homepage right now, and you scroll down a little bit, so that's interesting. You can see right there that that was something I talked about in the last video, was that the Bighorn Park that was kind of supposed to be a secret. So obviously that's been announced, and you can see how even just what the NDP is doing ties in directly to Y2Y, and they're calling that a win. And I'll talk about that in another video on exactly what's going on there. A lot of mainstream media projects Y2Y as this special interest group, as this environmentalist group that's doing all this wonderful work in protecting our headwaters, protecting all the large mammals that live in the mountain range of the Pacific Northwest and the eastern slopes of Alberta. But what they're really doing is their secondary agenda was shutting down oil and gas. Their primary agenda is to get you out, but the secondary thing is for them to shut down everything around you. So why isn't that a big deal to you? Well, say I don't have a camper, I don't have a snowmobile, I don't have a quad, I don't have a mountain bike, so, let them do whatever. Okay, well, that's the wrong attitude right there. Because the Y2Y, after they do get what they want, we can't let them win. After we let them get what they want, it's not just going to stop there. They're not just going to, okay, we made everything from Yellowstone to Yukon a park. That's not going to be the end of it. So don't just let them have that win, because that's not going to be the end. They're always going to ask for more. Having Americans kick me out of my own backcountry it just pisses me right off. Are you fucking kidding me? Going around their site a little more, you can read things that you can really tell that everything in their site is really designed to pull at your heartstrings and scare you into donating or getting active when you're really not well educated if this is the only source that you're listening to. Most of their gravity is not from Canada. They would have a very hard time existing in Alberta without US money. They probably wouldn't. I think most of their money comes from Montana, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of their maps actually ended up being wrong, and I think they've corrected them for the most part. When they came up to Alberta to speak to us, they were We actually made the Y2Y representatives, and literally they cried. They couldn't believe that us Albertans didn't want a park in our backyard. We already have lots of parks, and they couldn't believe, they were just absolutely flabbergasted that we didn't want another park in our backyard and in our mountains. I'm all for protecting nature. I'm all for protecting water. Clean water is great. I'm all for protecting the wildlife. I've seen more grizzly bears in the past 2 years than I have my entire life. I'm not going to talk about the grizzly bear studies. I think they're total bogus. I'm not going to talk about them today. That'll be another video. Going back to it, Y2Y's win isn't to kick you out of the backcountry. Y2Y's win is to shut down the Alberta backcountry to off-highway users, and then secondary, which is actually turns out to be their primary, it's their hidden agenda of kicking oil and gas out, of kicking industry out. So, maybe, like I said, maybe I don't have a camper, maybe I don't have a sled, maybe I don't have a quad, maybe I don't have a mountain bike, maybe I don't really do anything in the backcountry. Okay, well, that's fine, but here's the thing. Everyone in Alberta makes their money from the trickle-down effect. I mean, I make most of my money from oil and gas. That's where it comes into. I wrench on their machines, I sell them new stuff. I sell them stuff to work when the guys want to have their nice toys. They want to go out to the mountains. They want to play on their snowmobiles. They want to play on their quads. Mainly the guys who are buying them, for the most part. This doesn't include everyone, but for the most part are oil and gas guys who have money. Now that doesn't count just me. It counts toward truck sales. It counts toward everything, really, because those are the guys who have lots of money. That's where most of the Alberta money comes from, is oil and gas and secondary industry and the trickle down from that money. So, hey, I don't do any of that stuff. So what? My buddy can't camp. I don't go camping anyway. Okay, well, so say they are successful in turning that whole mountain range into a park. Well, here's the thing. Maybe you have an uncle who works in the oil field. Maybe you have a grandpa who works in it. And, okay, well, they're all now not able to work. Okay, so, all right, now it's starting to affect you, right? And if not you directly, you're starting to see the effects firsthand. Now, suddenly, they're not working. And it turns into people in other industries not being able to work because now the money's not flowing. And all of a sudden, that trickle down's finally made it to you, and whatever industry you work in, whether it's the service industry, whether it's sales, whether it's building, carpentry, whatever it is, now suddenly you're not making any money either because that trickle down isn't coming in anymore. This isn't just about kicking out backcountry users. It's about shutting down Alberta. What's the biggest thing that you can do to help keep this from happening? The number one biggest thing that you can do is vote. I shouldn't have to say it. You know who not to vote for. What's the next best thing you can do? Become a member of a club, whether it's a snowmobile club or an ATV club, a riders association. Become a club member. Even just going, say, to Golden or going, say, to Revelstoke and paying your trail fee every time you go. Okay, so basically you're paying the fuel for the groomer to go up and down the hill. You're not actually being a direct part of that club. You don't have to go to the meetings. You don't have to go to the events. You don't have to go to the poker alley, but spend that money and become a club member, because then your name counts, then your number is in the system, and we have strength in numbers, and it's about the only thing we have, because we don't have the kind of money that the environmentalists have. Becoming a member of a club is probably about the biggest thing that you can do. Let the government know how you feel about this, because at the end of the day, it's their say, because they have control of that money that's coming into Alberta from outside Canada, and them telling us what we can and can't do. One of the most harmful things you can do is ignore these laws. A caribou enclosure, I'll just use that as an example because it's one I deal with quite often. Ignoring those and ignoring the closures and just going outside and riding outside the bounds is about the worst thing that you can do, because it's basically showing them, well, we're not going to listen anyway. We're not going to respect those laws. We're not going to respect the rules anyway, and we're going to ride where we want and when we feel like it. That is about probably the worst thing that you can do. That is actually hurting our cause, not making it better. Going to the rallies, it's come to the point where we can't actually say, well, I'd really love to go to that rally, but you know what? I gotta work. Okay, well, here's the thing about that, is if you don't get your number counted and you don't end up starting to go to those rallies and fighting that government that's wanting to shut you down so badly, you might not be working at all. So I totally think it's worth taking that day off work and being able to go out there and being able to just be a part of it and make sure your voice is heard. You can go on Y2Y's site and they're already calling the Bighorn a win. They've called everything that we've done here in Alberta over the past 4 years, which not a lot of it has been great, a win for them, because I mean, in all reality, it has been. Y2Y is a conservation initiative, a special interest group that's interested in kicking us out of the backcountry and shutting down oil and gas in Alberta. They're interested in shutting down Alberta. Go out and buy a membership to a club. You don't have to go on the rides, you don't have to go on the rallies, but then your name is counted and it's one more number. I hope this video has given you a little bit of insight to what's going on in Y2Y and what's going on in Alberta. And I can see that my camera is just about to run out of power and 20 seconds left. Thanks everybody for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Watch my previous video. I'm going to be making more videos like this, and I'm running out of time. Thanks everybody for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see everyone in the next video.